You don't care about the very simple, common sense unfairness of this entire thing. And I think there's something wrong with you.
The facts don't care about your feelings.
Yeah, you don't have any feelings.
Okay, and we're gonna do children cannot consent to puberty blockers.
I know where I stand on this.
Okay. Children cannot consent to puberty blockers. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, move. Okay, you're neutral. Why are you neutral?
I think the notion of consent, particularly medical consent for children, is a complicated one, and I'm not sure where I stand on it.
What is complicated about it?
Obviously, I understand what people mean when they say consent, that someone can, in their right mind, make a decision about something. I think what's complicated about it is that children sort of do make some decisions about their health and don't make other decisions about their health. I'm not sure if those cases are closely analogous enough to the case of puberty blockers to drive me one way or the other.
So I just want to make sure I understand this. So the question you have is whether children can consent to things in their health sometimes, if that's the same as
In this case.
Can they consent to
Things like this as well.
So then the question is gender transition a matter of health?
Maybe not, because I think that there are also it depends how you characterize health, kind of, right? Because I can see health as being characterized as things that will harm people's ability to flourish, or health even being considered as like preference things, or maybe you'd argue mental health. Like they'll suffer. It's difficult.
Okay, sex transitions, and I understand that's a problem, that term. Yes, let's just go there for a second. Sex transitions under the age of 18 harm children's mental health. Move. You can stay where you want. You don't have to move. Okay. So, what is your response to what he said? He's unsure that children can consent to puberty blockers. What do you have to say to him?
Well, there are many issues to do with this. I'll bring up one issue that has been admitted by the president of WPATH. So WPATH is the World Professional Association for Transgender Health. The president is a man named Marcy Bowers, who admitted in a Zoom call last year, I've tweeted out the video of this all the time, that literally none of the boys who started on puberty blockers at what is called Tanner Stage 2, so this is the beginning of puberty. For girls, this is when their breasts first start to form. It's probably 2 years before they've had their periods. So these kids are all going to be like 9, 10, 11, 12, right? None of the boys, as adults, have been able to have an orgasm. So we're talking about putting these boys on these drugs when they're 11 or 12. They don't even understand what the concept of an orgasm is. None of them have ever had any sexual experience. And now you're destroying their future adult sexual function. It's literally impossible for a child to understand what they're signing up for. These are just little kids. In many cases, when they start on puberty blockers, they still believe in Santa Claus. And now we're telling them they can throw away their fertility and sexual function. They can't possibly understand it.
Do you agree with did you hear what he said?
Yeah,
Do you agree?
I agree strongly.
You strongly agree with what he said. What about that? Can children, I just want to make sure. So if children go on puberty blockers, the likelihood that they'll have an orgasm when they get older is small. Is that correct?
Yes, Marcy Bowers said virtually none.
Virtually not.
That's right. So these puberty blockers, combined with the cross-sex hormones, which they always go on to as well, are sterilizing children. And then you get these boys with micropenises when they're adults. And the final step in this whole procedure is to do bottom surgery, is what they call it. This is the euphemism. This is where they castrate a boy, slice open his penis, and invert it to form what's called a neo-vagina. But because the penis never grew, there's not enough tissue to do the surgery. So, for example, in the case of Jazz Jennings, where there's a reality show that's been going on for a decade, showing this boy's transition since he was a little child, they did this surgery on him when he was 17, but he had a micropenis. So what did they do? They cut out some of his peritoneum, his stomach lining, to form the interior walls of his neo-vagina. And of course, he's never experienced any sexual function whatsoever. And he never will.
Can you repeat back some of the claims that he made for why he's standing on that line?
Yeah, sure. So one of them was that when people undergo certain forms of treatment, if they later detransition, or even if they continue through with transitioning, they're infertile and unable to experience orgasms. That was one of them. And then that last one that you said, I'm not sure what the overall point was, but I think it was just that like the way that the surgery is performed is very damaging and bad. Is that right? Or is that probably the last one?
Yeah, it's a guarantee, of course, that they'll never have any sexual function. And there are all sorts of medical complications with this. One child died. And in the first study that was ever done in the Netherlands into this whole practice, where they first started giving puberty blockers, one of the children in that study died. Several others were lost to follow-up, and yet they still declared this study a wild success. And it's what formed the foundation of so-called gender-affirming care, which we should more accurately call childhood sex changes. This erroneous study is what formed the foundation of this going on all over the West, yet they've never been able to replicate the so-called success of that study.
But even that idea of a sex change they're not really changing someone's sex.
Of course you can't change anyone's sex. So this is just child mutilation and sterilization is what it is.
Do you agree with him?
Yeah, it's completely impossible to change sex. A male's body develops to produce the sperm cell. It should, could, would, does, did, or will produce that sperm cell. In some cases, it doesn't, due to various reasons. And likewise, for the female with the egg cell, their bodies develop down these pathways, and in literally 99 whatever percent of cases, that is the standard. The standard pathways they progress downwards.
Okay. It is possible, here's a new claim, it is possible for people to change their sex. Move. Why do you disagree?
Sex is typically understood as a term used in biology. Biologists haven't changed their use of that term, and it's not something that people can change in biology. It's something that they're kind of born with. There's still some complicated cases, but they're fringe cases.
So how come you're on the disagree and not on the strongly disagree?
Because I'm not an essentialist about language. I think biologists could change the way that they use the term, but currently they haven't. But in principle, they could.
So if you change the way a term is used, you change the biological reality?
Well, the biological reality, in my view, is the way that biologists talk about the subject, right? So it wouldn't change the way the world is, the alleged referent of the terms, but it would certainly change the way that we understand biology.
New claim. Most people understand what's involved in a sex transition. Move.
Most people understand what's involved in a sex transition.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll go neutral.
I'm a little surprised. Why are you neutral?
I think a lot of people do understand what's involved in this today. I think there's been an amazing campaign from people all around the world to raise awareness about this. And when I'm on the street having these conversations, and I've had about 20,000 of these conversations today versus 3 years ago, it's wildly different. I get fist bumps and high fives all the time. A lot of people now understand what puberty blockers are. They might have just a basic knowledge of this. They don't have great knowledge of it. But a ton of people now, I'd say, at least half the population have understanding that children are receiving puberty blockers and hormones and that it's wrong.
Why are you on the disagree line?
I think that most people are still massively in the dark about this. Chris talks to way more people than I do on a daily basis, no doubt, and online and on the streets. In my daily experience, most people don't have any recognition of the issue. They couldn't tell you the difference between some of the basic concepts. They couldn't differentiate the different aspects of it. So I don't think that awareness about it has been raised to any majorly significant degree amongst what you might call the normie population.
Okay.
I'm torn between slightly disagree and neutral, to be honest, but
You
Yeah.
can move if you want.
I guess it depends. I mean, that's a pretty vague statement, so I don't know. It's hard to quantify this, but in surveys that have been done, and with the polls, you can get polls to say a lot of things, but all of the polls that are being done show a majority of the population now take my stance on this, and it's growing all the time. And my personal experience is more than 90% of the population support my message. Yes, a lot of people still have a very basic level of understanding of it, but they at least have some understanding. So,
Okay. Children can consent to tattoos. Under 18.
strongly disagree.
Okay. The only valid use of woman is adult human female. Move. Take out the boards. Ah, good. The sun is coming on. I'm freezing. Okay. Here's what we're going to do. You guys are going to guess the best reason he has for believing that the only valid use of woman is adult human female, and you're going to guess. Okay. So, what do you think he wrote down in his bowl? What's his best reason for believing that?
I suspect that the gentleman will be defining certain of these words and saying that they have arbitrary definitions, such as adult, for instance. In law, we represent an adult as someone having met legal age, in the UK, 18, whereas people undergo different sexual development at different ages, and to some extent, many people are still undergoing sexual development into their early 20s.
So
I suspect he may be.
Yeah.
I suspect he may be using language games in that sort of way.
So you think that he thinks it's a problem with language?
I suspect he will be saying that that these terms don't have ultimate clear-cut definitions, and that there is an arbitrary element contained in these terms.
And I would add something.
Well,
And I would say, too, that the left wants us to believe that words can be redefined and that being a woman is based on a feeling and that it's basically a performance of feminine stereotypes.
a performance.
But yes, they believe that essentially we're all in drag, performing femininity, performing masculinity, and that's what makes us a man or a woman, and it's on a spectrum. But I reject that entirely.
And you think that's his best reason?
Yeah.
Were either of them correct as to what your best reason was?
One was closer, but I think
But still off.
still off. Yeah.
Okay. What do you think the best reason that they're standing on strongly agree for the only valid use of woman is adult human female? So you guys need to listen to this. Tell him if he is correct.
My understanding of what I think they believe is that I think that they believe we need to provide a principled and consistent definition for woman, and the only principled and consistent definition that we can provide is adult human female.
Is that correct?
Broadly, yeah.
It is broadly correct. Broadly correct.
Sex is not a choice. This is scientific fact. We don't say that dogs are transgender or that horses or orangutans or any other species can change their gender or their sex. Why are humans any different?
Do you agree with him?
Yeah, if you castrate a male dog, which is kind of a common occurrence at some point to neuter these animals, it doesn't a male dog doesn't magically become a female dog.
Okay.
Our sexes are based on the gametes that we produce. Sperm or eggs. Small motile gametes versus large stagnant gametes. This goes across almost all species. People like to say, like my good friend here has a rap song about this, about, well, clownfish can change their sex. Well, human beings are not clownfish. So sex is what it is.
And you two are agreeing on virtually everything.
Pretty much, yeah, I would say.
Yeah, because truth is objective. It's not subjective. We don't get to decide what's true. There is such a thing still in this world known as objective truth, and we know what it is.
Okay. Okay, so you broadly guessed there's correct. Do you guys want to take another guess at why he's standing here? You want to take another guess at what his best reason for standing there is? Because he said wasn't quite right what you guessed.
He said that one of the views was slightly closer. I don't know the gentleman well enough to be able to predict what how he might have strongly disagreed with that definition.
Well, we're going to find out in a second. Show them your reason for why you're here. Tell them.
Yeah. So it's that.
Tell them. Show them
Yeah.
too.
So it's that people use the word woman differently than just to refer to adult human females. And legitimate use is a description of how the linguistic community actually does use words rather than a prescription from a minority in the linguistic community.
So use for you is subjective and not linked to biology. It's just linked to how people traffic in words.
No, it is linked to biology, but that's one way that people use words. So biologists are a subset of the total population of humans.
So if gender scholars use the word in one way, that would be equally legitimate to biologists.
Perhaps not equally legitimate. I might give biologists more legitimacy, but I'd say that there's a social use, which is what most ordinary people use, which is more legitimate than either the biologists or the gender scholars' usage. So the vast majority of people have an ordinary usage of the word, which I think is highly polysemous.
Would you think is highly what?
Polysemous.
So on that basis, people use words differently. Well, if I say that tree is a ball, who are you to tell me that I'm wrong?
So what I would refer to is the way that the vast majority of people use the word, right? So if your use of the term caught on, then how I would come to understand the word would probably change, as it does with almost all words. You know, we speak a different language now to what people did 1,000 years ago.
Okay, so can you please tell him your reason for standing on that line? Show him the thing and tell him.
So we put adult human female. An adult is someone having fully undergone sexual development. A human is obviously of the human species, and a female is someone whose body should, could, would, does, did, or will produce the egg cell. It's not a feeling. It's based on something measurable. It's based on something quantifiable, objective.
Okay, let me grab this, and let me grab this. Let me grab these. Most people use the word woman to mean more than adult human female. Most people use the word woman to mean more than adult human female. Move. Wow, now this is interesting. You're all agreeing with this. I'm confused. Explain this. Who can explain this to me? This is rather striking to me.
Well, I think that, I'm going to speak on behalf of you guys, tell me if you agree or disagree, that you think that just is what most people mean. My view is going to be that most people don't have any particular definition in mind when they use the words. So I wouldn't say that most people have more in mind or less in mind. I just say that most people don't have that in mind at all. So the claim I would say is most people don't have any particular definition in mind when they say the word woman.
Okay, let's do that. Most people don't have any particular definition in mind when they use the word woman. I'm going to repeat it. Yeah. Most people don't have any particular definition in mind when they use the word woman. Move. Wow. Wow, you guys are again on the same line. Okay, so why?
I mean, it's quite obvious. This is a very recent phenomenon that's emerged, and only in the last 10, 15 years most.
Excuse me. One quick question. You know what a woman is?
No.
You don't know. You're confused. She's
Everyone.
Yeah, she doesn't want to talk. Yeah. So,
The vast majority of people, I mean, and that is 99.9% of people know what a woman is. We wouldn't all exist right now here if that weren't the case. We have been able to do that for tens of thousands of years. We've been able to procreate.
can I ask you a personal question? I usually don't do this, but may I ask you a personal question?
Go on.
Are you a heterosexual?
I am heterosexual.
Would you engage in sexual relations with a person who had a penis who claimed they were a woman?
No.
May I ask you a personal question?
Oh yeah,
Are you heterosexual?
bisexual.
Okay, then the question doesn't count for you. Okay, well let me ask you.
Depends who's asking.
Yeah, why are you on strongly agree?
Well, I just don't think that people really have definitions of words in their head when they use them. Like, I think people are competent users of words in particular contexts, so they use them to do things in the world. And I don't think that people go around with like definitions in their head when they use words. So to some degree, it's an empirical claim, so it could be falsified.
Can you Okay, I can differentiate a man from a woman almost all the time when I look at them. I can differentiate a man from a woman almost all the time when I look at them. Okay, then explain to me, if everybody is on this line, what is the confusion about the use of the term woman?
So, I mean, even if people can distinguish what a man is and a woman is, it doesn't mean that they have a definition in their head when they use the word.
In the same way that you don't have a definition of like tree.
Yeah, sure. Or yeah, I think so. For people who are very involved in like a political dispute about the definition of words, of course they've got a definition in their head, right? But for most ordinary people, they're able to use words without really having definitions of those words.
I mean, you're talking about people have a definition in their head of any word. When you're speaking the words that you're saying now, do you have the definition of each word that you're using, or is this like a sort of intuitive process that has been programmed into you? I think that exists. That's quite clear. Like when I look around me, and especially when I look at other human beings, I can instantly tell whether they're man or woman, whether or not I'm.
Not always, almost always.
I mean, almost always. Like, it's a rare occurrence that you look at someone and think, is that a man or a woman? But then there are secondary sex characteristics, like if you speak to the person, you instantly, you hear the voice often.
Okay. Now, are we aware that in sporting competitions, trans women, in other words, men, have been competing and beating women almost universally? We're aware of that. Just recently, I think it was in Glamour magazine, once again, a man made the Woman of the Year. Men make the best women. Okay, why are you on neutral?
I guess I mean, insofar as I understand it to mean that trans men are better at being women than biological women are. I guess it just depends. Like there are some cases of them being very good at particular skills or activities, better than
like MMA,
yeah,
Fallon Fox.
Yeah, right. There are some cases of them beating biological women at things, or even other things like maybe
cycling. Cycling is another big one. Swimming isn't, like Riley Gaines.
Yeah, and I think that there are other cases where biological women, I would say, are better at some particular thing that I care about than a trans woman. So, yeah.
Why you two again?
Well, because men aren't women, so they can't make the best women. Simple.
Same. It's a nonsense statement, to be honest. Like, men make the best women. It's like saying frogs make the best lions. Like, how do you? What are you saying here?
Most people believe that a trans woman is a woman. Most people believe that a trans man is a man. Here's the next claim. I have no problem with a trans woman, in other words, a man, competing against a woman in women's sports. I have no problem.
Men competing against women. You're neutral on men competing against women.
Yes.
Would you be neutral on yourself? Would you be neutral on yourself going in a boxing match against a woman?
He does Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, so you can change it to Jiu-Jitsu.
So you think it's fine to go do BJJ with women yourself?
Is that an entailment of the claim that I'm neutral on?
Sure. No, it's not.
So it'd be possible for me to think that some sports could have men and women competing together, or trans men and women competing together, or trans women competing in women's categories, right? I could think that for some sports and not for others.
Do you?
Sent to the claim.
What sports?
Well, in terms of my personal point of view, I kind of don't care. So my view of sport is that the main purpose of it is to entertain people, and so as long as I'm kind of entertained, well, yeah. So people could disagree about that, right? I'm not saying they can't, but as long as there are some categories that people sign up to that enable the sport to take place, I'm sort of happy for whatever. Now, some people, I understand how people can disagree with me. They say no, sports are there to exhibit virtues such as fairness, for example. So we create a fair playing field. And one way of doing that is to segregate by genders.
Well, why are there weight classes?
Yeah, because that's viewed as a fair way of dividing things up. But I'm saying you could potentially take that away and I might be fine with it, right? In principle.
Because it'd be more entertaining to watch a big guy beat a little guy.
In principle, yeah. So I don't have like an absolutist point of view on the way that sports should be divided up. I think that people can just divide them up however they want, and then people can sign up to compete in sports.
So you're neutral in terms of, I just want to make sure I'm clear.
Yeah.
You're neutral in terms of men competing against women, even if they're not trans.
Yeah, sure.
Like if I just wanted to go in, are you...
We didn't get an answer to the question.
What's the question?
Which sports is it fine for men to compete against women in?
In principle, any.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
In what way or context? Because young girls and boys play sports together quite frequently, and I know girls who play like volleyball with guys, and they'll frequently say, obviously, the guys are much more powerful and have a much more just strength in every single facet. But they play together, no doubt, even sometimes competitively. But this is not at a professional level, and this is not to measure who's the best at this sport, or at least who.
Is it fine that Fallon Fox fractured a woman's skull in MMA?
Well, it sort of depends, right? Because if you're asking me...
No. I gotta move.
Okay, you can move anytime, but you have to commit to a line.
Well, I just want to come near the mic so we can talk. How does it depend? Fallon Fox fractured a woman's skull in MMA. She didn't even know she was signing up to fight a man. So you tell me how it depends.
Yeah.
This is pretty cut and dry.
Well, will I be allowed space to respond?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So, what is it fine for someone to fracture someone else's skull? Well, I think that's a bad thing in general, obviously, right? But the question I'd want to ask is whether...
A man fighting against a woman.
Be allowed space to respond.
You're changing the
No.
words, and I don't appreciate that.
Go ahead.
A man fighting a woman, not someone.
Go ahead.
You're trying to water down the language here.
So, as I was saying, I think that an important case to consider here is Michael Venom Page fracturing Cyborg's skull, right, with that knee. And I would ask whether we would say that it's equally as wrong in that case. Now, in the sense that anyone getting their skull fractured is a bad thing to happen, it's wrong. But in the sense that within the context of the sport, you understand that things like this can happen, it's not wrong. The fact that someone's trans, in my view, isn't like an additional wrong-making property or something of the event. Yeah.
No, this is ridiculous. Males have greater upper body strength. They're taller, heavier, have broader shoulders. Look at you. You're a broad guy. Do you know what I mean? You do Brazilian jiu-jitsu. You no doubt do weights. You're not the tallest guy, but nonetheless, you have a lot of power. You can see it in your body. most women here, you would be able to destroy them within like a few seconds. It would take a rare woman, and there's probably quite a lot of women here right now. I think it would be a rarity that woman would be able to stand up to you in any sort of way, to be quite fair.
Another false claim he made earlier is that sports is primarily for entertainment. Really? My girls are in diving 3 nights a week. And they go to some competitions. If some boy comes along and starts competing against them, well, his upper body strength is going to be stronger. He's going to be able to do more flips and spins and all that sort of stuff. And he's going to defeat every single woman in the competition. Sports are not just for entertainment. Go tell that to all these girls competing in college swimming who trained 6 days a week, hours and hours a week, eating healthy, dedicating so much of their life in the pursuit of their swimming, only to have some man who was 500th in the male division come along and steal their gold medals. Tell me that's just about entertainment.
That's just about entertainment.
I think you're a pretty disgusting individual, if I may say so. I think you're disgusting. I think you're disgusting. You have a total lack of morality. You don't care about what these women are going through. You don't care about the very simple, common sense unfairness of this entire thing. And I think there's something wrong with you.
Yeah, facts don't care about your feelings.
Yeah, you don't have any feelings.
So what facts do you know that he doesn't know? And what facts does he... Okay.
I was just trolling him there. I just wanted to make the point I was exhibiting was that like a woke person like myself can understand the reasons that someone who disagrees with them might provide for their position. So if people recall when I said, so someone might disagree with my position because they think that sport's about something else. So I had the ability to understand and interpret why someone might disagree with me on this and then provide reasons for why I hold my own point of view, rather than reflexively becoming emotional and angry because someone disagrees with me and then coming up with insults about their character to justify my own position.
Do you think that men are, on average, women are as strong as men?
No,
You think, which is stronger?
usually men.
And do you think that manifests as an advantage in sports?
Yes.
And do you think that if one has an advantage on sports because of that category, that's unfair?
It can be unfair. Yeah.
And do you think if something is unfair, it's wrong?
Not well. In general, yes, but not when it comes to sports. It depends where we want to draw those lines, right? So to make this point, people have different economic backgrounds, right? So parents will provide their children with different amounts of nutrients while they're growing up, different amounts of coaching, but we don't have those as categories that we divide our sports up into. We can divide our sports however we want, and my view is still, well, if I so sometimes I might care about fairness in some cases of sports, but I also might just care about like freak shows in sports as well, because I think
No, you can come in the next round. Do you okay. I want to wrap it up. Did you get anything out of this today?
I enjoyed myself, yeah.
Did you get anything out of this?
Yeah, I got that he doesn't care at all about fairness for women in sport.
I agree. I hate women. That is my view as a woke person.
Do you consider yourself a woke?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thanks, guys. Thanks for playing. I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you very much.